Hey everybody, Bert from Seasoned Gaming, and back with another video where we're going to be actually updating old Xbox controllers. Now the big update is going to be not only cleaning the inside of them out, but changing these nasty old grody joysticks that you run across. You may have your old Xbox maybe in storage, maybe you still play it all the time. I actually still play my Xbox all the time. Have buddies that come over, we play Kung Fu Chaos, Project Gotham. Funny enough, we still actually play the old Halo on the Xbox. Just something about it, and it's fun to play split screen. On the Xbox 360, one of the most commonly played consoles to this day still, funny enough, you might have your old controllers maybe in a closet somewhere, maybe under your bed, maybe they were even in a garage, and these things kind of go bad over time. If you're playing them a lot, they fall apart on you. So you want to make sure that you can update these, and you can get them in little packs. So I have a set of joysticks here. You can kind of see these here. You can get them in, I've seen them in 12, 8, 24 packs. I found them on eBay, found them on Amazon. One of the interesting things is that the joystick between the original Xbox and the 360 controller is almost identical. On the Xbox One, it is completely different. So if you are buying sticks to update because they've fallen apart, make sure you're buying for the right type of console / controller. So let me actually talk about it really quick. The Xbox 360 controller uses this hex type key for screws to come out, whereas the original Xbox controller uses a typical Phillips head, and you gotta have really tiny ones here. A lot of times you can buy the joysticks with the actual screwdriver / hex, whatever you want to call it, or if you've just taken apart a lot of controllers like I have tons of these screwdrivers, so they're pretty cheap. You can get like a little kit of them for, I don't know, $2-3, so they're pretty easy to buy. Other things that you might need for this, I have these tiny little tweezers, and I'll show you why in just a second. And lastly, maybe a razor blade to cut things that you might see in there. Other things that I've added to this little DIY is just a duster to get dust out of things. And when I take these apart, I mean, some of these controllers have not seen light in 10, 15, 20 years. So we just need to kind of make sure we clean them up, make sure it looks good, and make sure we're happy about it. So let's actually start out with the oldest. Now the disassembly for this between the Big Duke or the big controller, very similar. They didn't really change a lot on them. The number of screws, you're going to have 3 on this side, 3 on this side, and there's 1 hidden back here in the very middle. You got to be really careful when you're taking this apart because you can actually break this type of piece here if you just try to lift it, because this screw will stay in. So I'm going to go ahead and take these out. I'm going to do them in fast forward, and then when I come back, this will be taken apart. So just watch along, listen to music. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to stop the fast forward here just for a couple things. First of all, when you're pulling these screws out, it can get kind of gross. You see all this little skin cells or dead skin, whatever you want to call it, that has fallen out. The other thing is when you're getting in there, some of these screws have not been out for a while, so you might have to get in there, press kind of hard against the screw, and try to pull it this way. Other times, the screw is actually out, and you can kind of see the shell kind of falling apart there. And it may be out all the way, you're just not sure, and it might just stick in there. Now, the other thing is when you are taking this off, there's 1 screw back here, like I said. Make sure you unscrew that one, and you pull this one out before you don't. If you don't, you're going to get a break in the actual controller. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these out. The other thing is when you are messing with this, you might hear broken plastic all over the place. Here's a little chip mine had a long time ago. So it just could be broken pieces that have really been in the controller over years and time. That's to be expected. So let me get this taken apart, and then I will come back when all the guts are out. Okay, so there's the back shell. You can kind of show us what's going on here with this back shell. Gonna get the back shell out of the way for now. Come back to it. Try to find your screws because you're going to need those later on. So I said there was 7. There's 4 and 7. I'm just going to put them here up top for now, move them out of the way. Now this controller is actually really easy to do. This whole DIY will take you 5 minutes. There's a lot of stuff you can do. I mean, if you want, you can see this controller is pretty clear, but you can spray some just compressed air to get any dust out if you have any. You may not have any concerns about that, but when you lift, there's a couple little ports that you want to unplug. So I'm going to unplug the vibration motors. That actually lets me here. Now you actually don't have to do that, but you can if you want. And all these buttons are going to start falling out. So you want to be careful when you're lifting. But you're trying to get to the joysticks. So here you are. Here are the actual sticks. And let me just pull them out. It's literally that easy. You just pull them up. Now, as a matter of fact, you can actually let these buttons fall for now. It's easier to actually place the buttons into it and then place your piece over. In this case, let me get the sticks on first. The sticks actually have to go on. If you've taken apart an Xbox One controller, very similar. Now, you can see this actual stick is really gross. Let me see if I can get some of this stuff out. Actually, I got a lot of that stuff out, which is pretty nice to see. Alright, this one was not bad at all. I'm not too concerned about that one, but there's like a nasty little tiny hair. I don't even know where that comes from. But essentially, you're replacing the sticks, so you can see the two differences here. This one's actually fallen apart from the top. Here's the other one that has just kind of had its day. It's over. So let me go ahead and just place that in, and then we'll talk about the buttons. Alright, 360 controller S pad. Let me get the buttons back in there. And let me think of the best way to do this. So what I'm going to do is actually take these buttons out. Can't remember, the black one's going to be at the bottom here, and then the white one fell out already. So what I'm going to do is actually, these actual motors can come out like this. So the easiest way to do it is to hold the controller like this and actually just let your buttons drop in there. So if you can see how I'm doing this, I'm just dropping the buttons. It's pretty easy to not get confused with the buttons. If you see here, the actual pattern of how it falls back in there is different for each one of these. At the same time, hopefully you remember where your buttons go. So let's see, B button back there. Let me do the A button right here. Let me see if this is right. Should be, everything's falling into place, so hopefully. Now let me just hold these here and flip them over to make sure everything's pointing in the right direction. Yep, I did get everything right, so you see the actual buttons are pointing in the right direction, and that's because they fall back into place pretty easy. Now, all you're gonna do, hold your actual front of the pad as it is. I'm just gonna lay it back in there. It's that easy. Now, oops. These pads, you can actually stick it down on top of this as well. Make sure you're on the control points at that point. These actual pieces of rubber will go over that area. You can kind of make sure it's laid down properly. And as you lay the top down on top of this, everything should just fall into place. There you go. So now we're in there. Make sure these two pilot holes here, they're not really pilot holes, that's what screws in there. And funny enough, that plastic is maybe just broken out over time. Once again, these are old controllers, so be pretty careful with when you're putting everything back. Obviously, something might just be broken in the plastic. I'll actually show you some pieces of plastic that broke over time. That's pretty much it. I can put the shell back on. One of the things is you want to make sure that your power cord goes in the top and it falls into this little piece right there. Looks like we had, the button back here. Oops. Let's see which one that is. That one fell out. The thing that's annoying about this controller is the joysticks. Sorry, the power cord. Super annoying. And that piece just fell out of the bottom there. So let me just finish pushing this back in. So yeah, you just want to follow everything back in. It's literally that easy. Like I said, this power cord will go and stick itself right in here. Make sure everything looks good. I'm gonna get the shell and put it right back where it should be. Right. So this you should hear like a couple clinks or whatever. And at this point, you're just going to screw everything back up. So I'm going to go back into fast forward, do that. Like I said, you will have little pieces of plastic that have just broken over time. Here they are right here. These are actually the screw-in points to the screw. Other things you could do at this point, you can see this is kind of gross here. You have some like just dead skin. You can clean that up if you'd like. Other things, maybe around the buttons, the bumpers, they've just kind of had their day as well. So get those cleaned up, if you'd like. Right now is the time to do it. Let me screw everything back up, and then we'll move over to the Xbox controller. Okay, now one of the things I did mention, you have these tweezers. The problem is you can take this, lift it up. It's going to be more useful for the Xbox 360 controller. But if you're really big about your stickers and you don't want that to get messed up, lift it up. A lot of people will use like a hairdryer, maybe something that will, you know, expunge the heat and the glue a lot better. You can just push this right back down after you're done. Unfortunately, since the glue is so old, this one might stick, may not. It'll actually stay up because it's just an old controller. And the glue's so old. While you're here, you can test your buttons, make sure everything feels good. If something did not feel good when you hatched everything back up, that means the rubber is not seated correctly. But that's pretty much it. If I turn it over, you can see you have an Xbox Controller S now with brand new sticks. So it's literally that easy. Biggest things that I would say is make sure that when you are taking things apart, you take it in the right order. Don't leave this one on. You'll break plastic. This one actually had a broken, looks like a line from a long time ago. I can't remember if I tried to change something on this controller years ago, but just be careful. But anyways, brand new sticks on an Xbox Controller S. Let's take a look at the Xbox 360. Okay, here we are with the Xbox 360 controller. As I said, the actual sticks are identical to the original Xbox controller. So if you are buying and upgrading your sticks, or I should say just replacing your sticks, not much of an upgrade here. Buy a whole bunch of them, then you can replace everything on all your actual controllers. So pretty cool, here they are. Let me just get everything disassembled first, and let me show you what they are. So once again, you're using a different type of actual screwdriver this time. These had the old battery pack, and here's where I was talking about your tweezers slash razor blade, whatever you want to use. These also have 7, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 is under here. Now the thing that's annoying about this is this old serial number is stuck down here, and you have to keep in mind this glue has not been touched, or this sticker has not been touched unless you were doing any modding in a very, very long time. Now you can lift that with a screwdriver, sorry, you can lift it with a razor blade, or you can actually just use the screwdriver and cut through this individual thing. I'm actually gonna do that. These controllers are so old that I don't really care about the serial number. But if you wanna take the time, be patient, once again, you can use a hairdryer, make that glue kind of soft. This thing will lift up. Let me try one more time to see if I can get it to lift in the corner. No, it's just gonna be too small. There's not much room to work with. And like I said, you can use a razor blade, maybe try to get underneath it. I don't care, to be honest with you. So I'm just gonna push through here, and you can see my screwdriver already grabbed it, and you can see the actual screw come up. So pretty easy on how this works. And there's the long screwdriver. I've got 6 of them. Let me fast forward once again. Let me get these all out. All right, so I'm gonna come out of fast forward here, and I'll just show you this. It is kind of gross. I mean, you have old skin. Maybe you bought these from somewhere on Craigslist or something. You're getting someone else's nastiness in there. That's probably the grossest part of this video. If you stopped watching, sorry. That was not my intention to gross you out. But anyway, so how does this come up? You just gotta pry it a little bit, move it around. There it goes. I just popped it right there. I'm gonna lift here, and you've got a very similar, so this is pretty gross. I can't remember where I got this from. Does that look like old dog here? I'm not even sure what that is, but that's pretty gross. Let me see how much I can blow out of here. One sec. All right, so gosh, I just made a mess here. I'm gonna not worry about that to an extent. Actually, you know what? I will pause the video on record here. I'm gonna get this out of here. This is pretty gross, and I will come back. Okay, I've taken everything apart and pretty much cleaned it because, as you saw, when we initially took it off, it was just disgusting and pretty grody with hairs and everything, and I wanted to clean it up to where it looks a lot better. Other things you can do is, like these little wet ones here, you can use it to clean up all the nasty skin cell stuff and just dry skin that has come off the past. But that'll be lined on here, maybe your trigger or something. I'm not gonna touch on that too much. I don't wanna spend time cleaning a controller, but just ideas you can do. One thing to keep in mind is since these controllers haven't been open in a long time, you might actually see some residue that might make this kind of a hard thing to take off. And as you can see here, I'm getting a lot of pressure to pull this off of. And what it actually is this little tiny screw point that actually anchors this piece that goes into the middle is expanded a bit. And so you have to kind of mess with it. There it goes, it kind of popped out. Now the main thing to do is take off your trigger motors and you can actually lift at this point. Many times the actual sticks, there you go, we actually have the situation. The stick will stay inside of the actual housing just because it's a big stick. When it's stuck in there, it's thick. So we get that one out of there. Let me put this to the side just for a second. And as we take a look at the motherboard, see here's some old just residue, maybe some corrosion. If you get really kind of OCD about that, you can actually get that cleaned off if you'd like. Now is also a good time just to put some compressed air maybe in those motors. Also, sorry, the joystick housings and stuff. You can do that. You know, let me just spray a little bit in here. And that'll get some dust, whatever you have. Unfortunately, my dog probably just had some hair just from my fingers in there over time. It's just really weird. You know, mess with the stick, see if there's any play. Thankfully, the 360 controller did not have a ton of joystick issues. Some people ran into them, but mainly the Elite Xbox One controller is known for having a ton of joystick issues. Funny enough, the 360 didn't have that. Also, now you have the other housing out. Perfect time to clean anything off that you want. Let me just put this back together just to show you the best way to do it. Oops, didn't even put my new sticks on. What am I thinking here? So here's a new stick. Just put it in there, click it in, push it all the way through. You want to line it up the same way. And there we go. I actually hold the motors, and then I just put it back in here like this. The things you want to guide to is just the actual sticks, and there it is. It'll anchor back into that center point where the screw was before. Here I'm just going to put the motors back into their spots, make sure everything is fitting nicely. The good thing about this one is you don't have the same issue that you have with the Xbox original controller. I'll show you some other things that are pain points, but here, since it's sitting nice in there, you can take a look at your buttons and make sure everything is working, sitting properly. Once again, these motors will continue to fall out over and over. No big deal, they can just be pushed right back in. Let me see the best way. I like having the ribbons, the points falling straight in the middle there. Now, the main thing that when you're assembling this back is these little pieces right here can be a pain because these actually go to the battery position and they have to slide into the rails here. So you'll see there's two little rails. And as I put this over this joystick area, sorry, the trigger area, I'm now going to, a little tip here, if you put the joystick, the triggers down as you put this in, you'll have a little bit more room. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting my fingers here, pushing this down, and now I'm using my thumbs here at the bottom to guide the actual little springs that are there into the rails that come from here. If you don't put that there, and you'll hear all the popping and everything as everything goes back into place, but if you don't put that there, what happens is when you put the battery piece back in here, the points that these will charge back into the actual motherboard are not contacted very well. So make sure you do that. Let me just put this here from a visual perspective. Turn it around, you've got some brand new joysticks on your 360 controller. So let's put them both right next to each other. Here is the original Xbox controller. You got some brand new sticks. You've got the Xbox 360 controller, some brand new sticks there as well. Really cool to have both of these refreshed when you're playing. You will feel the difference. If I look at my old sticks, man, these were falling apart. I can only imagine my thumb was maybe falling off there, or my friend's thumb was falling off there. The 360 sticks, if I look close at them, they weren't really that bad. They just had a little bit of wear and tear. You had little bitty points on here that would give you a little extra grip on your thumbs when you had them there. So that's not really a big deal, but while I'm here and I'm refreshing it, it's a perfect time to do it. Also, like I said, clean up your controllers. Right now is the time. You've got it apart. It's kind of nice. You don't want some old skin cells playing there as you have a fresh controller. While you're there, take it apart. Use these little wet wipes, or like I said, maybe a paper towel with some water on it. Use some compressed air to get that dust and maybe dog hair, cat hair, whatever you have at your house. But that's the biggest thing. Any other tiny little points are, just be careful when you're putting your Xbox controller S back together. Those old points that you screw into, they can fall apart over time. Here's a couple pieces of mine just from unscrewing it. I didn't even put a ton of pressure on it, but that's literally the rattling of plastic here. I can still hear more plastic in here. I don't know what that's from. The Xbox 360 controller did not have that issue. So this is a newer, higher quality plastic. The screw points are taken care of a little bit better, but when you're screwing them back in, just make sure that you're doing it right. Anyways, if you have any questions, anything else that you kind of fall into, let me know. Put it in the comments below. I'll try to answer those as I see them. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.